us meet you once again.
Emmanuel Onwe.
Yeah, well, here is your farm.
It is. Um,
Why did you go into this huge project?
well, the concept of 1 man 1 hectare was initiated last year by the governor of Ebonyi State, and it was his way of getting everybody involved, because I think he's a man that has been so obsessively exercised by the fact that Nigerian economy is changing. Something else had to be done. The story needed to change. The direction of rescuing ourselves could no longer be sustained by reliance on oil. And therefore, when he pushed every member of the Executive Council of Ebonyi to find a hectare, particularly in government lands, and cultivate rice, I enthusiastically got involved. And then when I saw that this land had been lying fallow for like eternity, I've never known this place to be cultivated, and therefore I decided to tackle the challenge of cultivating it. And that is what we've done. This is nearly 100 hectares of land that was previously allocated to the NYSC as an experimental demonstration farm. I don't think they were properly resourced to do it, and therefore it really wasn't ever done. If you, somewhere down there, you will find buildings that were commissioned in 1989 for the NYSC, never completed. And that gives you an idea of how Nigerians and Nigerian leaders have been treating agriculture. Now, it's a completely different story.
Okay, for how long, how many years have you done this?
Oh, this is just my second year.
And what was the experience last year? I mean, economically, is it something that is worth the venture?
Oh yes, it is. But you know, I think much more important is the idea of showing that it can be done, and it can be done by anyone. I think that is far more important than anything else. That it can be done. It can be done whether you're a governor, because the governor has also a very large farm in Ubru. Last year he had a farm. This year he also has a farm.
You are saying that there are other farms also belonging to members of the EXCO. This one is all yours.
Absolutely, yeah, yes. What we have here is mine, and across the silos. Because those silos, by the way, I've been talking about them. That's a very wonderful strategic grain reserve built around the 1980s, thereabouts. And the whole concept is to have grains put in them for the rainy day, so to speak. Quite apart from the primary purpose of having it as a facility for storage of grains, so that they will not go to waste. Okay. But that, I understand, has been concessioned into private hands. And of course, myself have been...
By the federal government?
Yeah, the federal government has, I understand, has concessioned that to private hands, which I think is rather a pity, because the Ebonyi State government has been strongly agitating. It went from pleas and so on to active agitation to have that silo given to Ebonyi, so that all these efforts we're making, that will complement it. But anyway, it's not going to leave Ebonyi, so whatever produce we get in Ebonyi will still go in wherever it is.
Okay, now I want us to talk about agricultural economics now, because the idea of this back to farm program, or 1 man 1 hectare, is preparatory to the time that Nigeria will not be dependent on our economy. So to understand, or to make people know that how it can sustain our state, it depends on the economics of this venture like this. From what you have done now, is it worthwhile, profit wise? Is this something that can give you the difference between the financial investment and the financial return? Is it something encouraging that if we go into it? Because I'm saying this because you're the last person I want to get in this kind of a place, and I'm surprised.
That's it. That's where the Nigerian psychology has gone wrong.
Okay.
I refer to a proposition I made to a few friends and colleagues last year. Last year, I think a barrel of oil was selling at about $50, give or take, at the later part of last year. Of course, last year was when it was really almost at its nadir. And I said, if I gave you 1,000 kilograms of crude oil and presented you with 1,000 kilograms of milled rice, which would you take? And if I propose that to you, I'm sure you will say, give me the crude oil.
Maybe you are changing my
Yeah, I will give you you take the crude oil because we are psychologized in that way. That's the Nigerian mentality. Oh, let's get involved with oil and gas. That is where the $1 million are made. You become a billionaire in hard currency overnight. As for rice, so this is something they do in rural communities in Ebonyi. But that is a very grave misconception, because the mathematics I did was, if you divided your 1,000 kilograms of crude oil to give you about 7.33 barrels of oil, sell each one for about $50, you will get 180,000 naira. But if you sold your 1,000 kilograms of milled rice, which if you divide it into what we call bushels or head pans, will give you about 40 bushels of rice. If you sold each one at that time for 7,500 naira, that will give you about 300,000 naira. So very nearly double the value of crude oil. So if you understand it, this is building towards the profitability of the
yes.
It costs about between 25 to 30 or even $40 to produce 1 barrel of crude oil. In fact, why the fracking technology now went bust in the United States is because unless crude oil sales at between $45 to $50 per barrel, they cannot make profit, because it costs them $40 to produce 1 barrel. I can't think of any time it will cost you more than, say, 2,500 or 3,000 naira to produce a bushel of rice. So whichever way you're still making a margin that is much superior to what you make from crude oil.
Now, yesterday you were talking about zero hunger, and that seems to be the new song that we have now. But the problem we have now, because why I like this thing you're doing is that our school leavers do not think they should be getting into the farms. And the state government has introduced a school agric program where they farm. Are you telling our school leavers that if they come out from school, that they can get into the farm and still break even and make all the money and sustain the site? So what's your message to them?
Yeah, not just our school leavers. I'm conveying the same message to you.
To me?
To everybody. Everyone should be doing it. Look, I have such privilege. I do not, as you said, the last person you will expect to be here is me.
I think I was correct.
Yeah, but again, that is the psychology we have. Because the question would be, somebody called me when he saw, I think, a clip on television, saw me on the farm, and he was laughing. He said, what is an LSE educated, Inns of Court School of Law trained barrister, a practitioner in the Supreme Court of England and Wales, doing in a bush in Africa, farming? That is just it. And my answer is, why not? Why not be here? Why not be here and participate in one of the best business ventures as far as I'm concerned? And so I recommend it to everybody. The governor of the state is doing it, and with great passion. I mean, that is what excites me so much. You see, there is that image, I don't know if you've seen it, that imagery of a chicken. I think Honorable has been promoting that quite a bit. That's this chicken leading a cockerel, leading the hens, and they're just following. And then there is the image of the governor crossing a local bridge. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I have it.
That imagery is very exciting for me. Why is it exciting? It's a question of showing. Leadership is just showing. It's not a question of asking, do this, do that. It's showing. And that is exactly, I think, what distinguishes the governor in the efforts he's making. Because once he took the lead, people like us keyed into it. And I was prepared. Last year we didn't make that much of it. In fact, last year I would say we made a loss. Because last year there was no mechanization applying at this farm. More than 3,000 to 4,000 people worked here. Each person going home every single day with about 2,000 naira. From the beginning of, middle of July rather, till the end of September. That was just for the planting of the rice. And then the harvesting. As we are talking about harvesting here, this is going to take more than 2,000 man-hours to harvest. And this is just 1/3 of the farm we're talking about. So everyone, including yourself, TA, including everyone, including this young lady, everybody should get involved. Now, even if it is 1 acre, I'm not talking about a hectare now, even if it is 1 acre, what is exciting about it is you will make profit and you'll be fit, because no exercise is superior to this. If I hadn't come to the farm with people like yourself who I don't believe are very fit, I would have taken you around 4 times At the end of it, you lost all the calories you consumed last night.
Okay, let me. You took me to somewhere now when you talked about man-hour.
Yes.
Now, a farm of this magnitude, and you talk about man-hour, that's bring on in the question of mechanization. And I want to ask, are there encouragements you want the federal government, are there things you would want to be available for prospective farmers, like, and the new converts like me?
Absolutely, absolutely. Too many. The mechanization must be there. We have to have bulldozers to help in land preparation. We have to have tractors to help in the land preparation. We have to have herbicides that work, pesticides that work. If you look over there, there are tapes. Those tapes, I bought them from the United States. Those tapes are reflective tapes that drive away the birds. As you can see, one of the things you've noticed in the farm is that not one single grain has been lost to birds. And that tree there has been colonized by over 10,000 birds, but they never touched the grain of rice because of that technology. And we need fertilizers, authentic fertilizers that are highly subsidized. Both the two, the two types of fertilizer, the NPK variety and then the urea variety. We know all of that. And then we need a national strategy for food, because as you know, we have the EFCC, we have the CPC, we have the Code of Conduct Bureau, we have the Nigerian Police, sometimes we even have the Nigerian Army fighting against crime, we have the prisons, we have customs and excise, we have a huge array of established federal institutions, creations of law, first line charge creations of law that are all dedicated to the fight against crime. Are we the most criminal people on earth? And yet not one single institution, as far as I can know, is dedicated to fight against food emergencies. Not one. So why can, I will make a recommendation. The federal government should create, as a matter of urgency, what I would call, to abbreviate it again, FIA, Food Intelligence Agencies, which should be responsible for, first of all, capturing the fact that people like us are making this effort, and then promote that notion that you don't have to be a certain type of village woman to be able to be involved, that you can be a British trained lawyer and still be involved. And a food intelligence agency would also be able to predict the tragedy unfolding in the northeast of Nigeria now. When you gather people in large numbers, in narrow concentration, in refugee camps, because that is what the security situation created in that part of the world, you should be able to predict that the next, apart from accommodation, the next great emergency you're going to face is feeding them. So, and so on and so forth. The food intelligence agency is sorely needed in a country that is struggling so hard to feed itself like we're doing. And besides, for me, the notion that Nigeria spends so much dollars that we do not have in importation of food. Nigerians consume 6 to 7 million metric tons of rice every year, and we produce less than 40% of that. Is that not madness? So that any intelligent person that understands that knows that something has to be done.
Then, what about the agricultural program in Ebonyi State is not restricted to rice only?
No.
Good. And we have some other problems in other areas, like there are some other foods that need to be stored.
Yes.
So, would you want the government to look into the direction to provide storage facilities for
Absolutely.
them? Because
absolutely. I think the advocacy from the Federal Minister of Agriculture is wonderful, but advocacy is not enough. Action, action, action. Because last year we were taken by surprise by the shortages we experienced in the area of tomatoes, for instance.
Oh God.
And every food emergency in this country tends to take the population by surprise. And the terrible price is paid for it. Why? Because the great quantum of tomatoes we produced the previous year, 2015, went into, were destroyed because they could not be preserved. Why do we not have preservation facilities for fresh produce? Because nature has designed it in such a way that it's a great thing. Rice, once you harvest, and if you harvest and thresh and then put in storage, it will endure. If you harvest, thresh and parboil, it will also endure. But not tomatoes, not cassava. Of course, even if you turn your cassava into garri, it will only store for a certain amount of time.
Okay.
So we have absolutely no preparation for food preservation and storage. None exists in the country, as far as I can see.
Now, there is a lacuna somewhere in the advocacy for agriculture and whatever. It tends to be coming from the government directly to the people. What are you thinking about a situation where the government will be told the things that it needs to do to generate or to catalyze the interest of the people in farming and make it possible for them, so that we depart from this point of advocacy, no action, but we have an action-backed advocacy.
Yeah, that's
So what's your take there?
so that's part of the mental laziness of the citizenship. Because anyone that expects government to do everything, to think about everything, in civilized, progressive, industrialized societies, it is usually the other way around. It is the citizen that is constantly making demands, because why you elect leaders is so that they implement the demands you make upon them, not to elect leaders that will constantly be reminding you of what to do. Because it is a two-way stream. You must fulfill your civic obligations as a citizen, for instance, and then you expect the government to also fulfill its responsibilities at the leadership cadre. It's very important for citizens, like the kind of demands I'm making. Provide us with tractors, ensure that we have seeds that whose integrity has not been compromised. Guarantee that we have subsidized fertilizers so that farmers will be able to go to these fields. There's so much land. I mean, look, Ebonyi is rather unlucky. We have our land mass is very narrow. Ebonyi is only about 5,500 square kilometers. Niger State is 76,000 square kilometers. But we're making the most of what we have. The whole of the southeast is 44.4 thousand square kilometers. So one state, Niger State, is almost twice as large as the entire southeast. But if you boast about landmass, what have you done with your landmass?
Like even here now, this place was fallow until...
Of course, it was. So it's not about the landmass, it's not about the whether it is small or large, it is what are you doing with it? What are you doing with it?
In other climes, there is a paradigm shift from chemical fertilizers to biofertilizer, which they say are more friendly to the soil and to crops and stuff like that. And here, if we take what we're saying here as a demand from the leadership, we talked about NPK, we talked about, which means maybe some of our, down here, there have not been enough sensitization on the need for. So what would, because some of these fertilizers are not soil friendly, like those two you mentioned.
Yeah,
so
apart from that,
in the development of fertilizer, wouldn't you think about this a better option?
Apart from not being soil friendly, because I'd be quite happy for Africans to use as much fertilizer as possible, as long as it helps us feed ourselves. The problem is this: there are consequences to every single thing you do. The dependence on synthetic chemical fertilizer is not healthy for any consumer of any product, be it rice, beans, maize, cassava, potatoes. All the huge array of food items we have are produced through dependence on synthetic chemical fertilizers. And then you ask yourself, how is it that a society like Nigeria, which is not industrialized, which is not highly polluted, and yet the incidence of cancer has multiplied several folds? Why are we not investigating as to the causes of this? What we're trying to do, in fact, is after these somewhat experiments we're doing, is to escalate our involvement in rice production to organic rice that does not require any form of chemical fertilizer other than organic natural manure. Of course, the price is going to be different, but if you care about your health, you have to pay premium for it. I know there are people that will care so much about their health that they're prepared to pay the additional cost, because it's going to be much more expensive to produce rice through the organic method. Because when you expect to make maybe 4 or 5 metric tons per hectare, you will make it 2 or 1. But it is the healthiest form of rice that you can think of. So it's the same argument that is tied into this notion of the continuous dependence on imported rice, where it is the Minister of Agriculture that told us that rice coming from overseas, particularly coming from Thailand and Vietnam and India and the Philippines and China, rice have been in storage for more than 10, 12 years. So,
okay. There is something because there is something you have left us with a kind of impression that where I am wondering whether I am talking with the Commissioner for Agriculture or the Commissioner for Information, but that's good. And I would want to recommend a particular thing. You can catalyze this sensitization, especially on the direction, because all the government does is provide money, soft loans, and the enabling environment is not there. There is need for so many other things to make people generate interest in farming and to make it work. So please, I would want you, just in a summary, what are those things for now that the experience has shown you, and from what you have studied here, that the government needs to do?
Look, this past farming season, the government of Ebonyi State subsidized the NPK variety of fertilizer, which used to sell for between 7,000 to 8,000. It was sold across the state, and in fact, it was made illegal for anyone to sell NPK variety of fertilizer for more than 5,500 to the farmers. That was a practical step. Last year as well, the government of Ebonyi State borrowed more than 2 billion naira tax funds from CBN and used that to subsidize and supplement the efforts of the farmers, but not up to 5%, as the governor made clear in his zero hunger speech yesterday. Less than 2% of that money has been recovered. This year, effort is being made to borrow from the anchor borrowers and also make, to make that available to farmers. All those efforts are being made. The government of Ebonyi State procured about 50 tractors last year, which were sold to farmers on a hire purchase. And the repayment plan was so low, nobody pays more than 7 to 8%. Those efforts have been made. But you see, people continue to treat government as if it is a nanny that must breastfeed you and then wipe your bottom and then breastfeed you again. It's not. Government functions best when individuals are creative and bring their challenges to government, and government applies specific solutions to specific problems. Not this blanket notion that every single problem must be solved by government. It is wrong. And you see, I've not done anything about going out to do orientation as part of my mandate, because I've believed in that notion of that chicken. You show. Telling people, I mean, the concept of attitudinal change, I am a great opponent of attitudinal change. I'm sorry that it's a policy we've taken forward as a government, but the concept of a government telling you to change your attitude shows something that is philosophically wrong in such a society, because the idea is that, oh, those of us at the top are okay. It is you that needs to change your attitude. Because once that advocacy is embarked upon, any critical citizen will simply think about it and say, look, I'm better than you that is up there telling me to change the attitude. And therefore you create a friction between yourself and the citizens. The best you can do is to lead by example. So if we're in the farm doing what we're doing, school leavers, TAs, SAs, commissioners, even the governor is involved. Who else? Ministers get involved. Buhari, the president of the Federal Republic, is a renowned farmer. So that, I think, is the best orientation we can give to our citizens.
So what's the size of this farm again?
Oh, this here is about, just give or take, 100 hectares of rice field.
From
and on the other side, we have about 120.
You have another farm too?
Yeah, across the road. Just across the road.
Oh, okay. We'll leave you for now. Maybe you will come. Thank you so much.
Okay.
It's been a wonderful.
Okay, so I think in conclusion, why I'm here after the interactions yesterday over the Zero Hunger program is to just make the point that these efforts are not just political gimmicks.
Yeah.
First, it's too large to be a political gimmick. The investment is too heavy for it to be a political gimmick. What it is the demonstration of what is possible and what any of us can do. And to emphasize that last year, rice in Ebonyi State sold between 10 to 12,000 a bushel, and the bushel is 25 kg, which means a bag of rice was between 20 to 24,000.
Exactly.
That was the case.
Exactly.
This year, because of all the efforts we're making, the price of rice has been depressed to about 4,000, 4,500, almost 5,000 per bushel, which means a bag of rice now in Ebonyi State is 10,000. That is a promise made. That is a promise. Okay.
Thank you.